Hey everybody, welcome to the Sobriety Diaries. I'm your host, Nate Kelly, a recovering alcoholic, 7 years from my last drink, a recovery mentor, and podcast producer. I am so grateful to be bringing you these powerful stories of recovery told by you, those who live them. Please share this podcast with anyone who may need it today. And with that, let's open the diary on episode 102 of the Sobriety Diaries. Welcome back to the Sobriety Diaries. I am here with my friend, Gary Mankies today. Gary, happy Monday. How are you, my friend?
I am well, my friend, and happy Monday to you. I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor to be on the Sobriety Diaries.
Happy to have you. We, in full transparency, have had a couple conversations to date. We have another one coming up. You are sort of in the midst of launching or the follow-up to launching your podcast. I want to start there because I think when I was probably somewhere in the time frame that you are, I was realizing the amount of work that goes into a podcast. How has the journey been thus far?
It's been a lot of work, like you said, but it is going super fast on so many different levels. The term podcast was, although I listen to podcasts, but it wasn't starting my own podcast was nowhere on the radar at all. Anytime, even recently. I'm always interested in learning. I'm always interested in using my mind and growing and next chapter type stuff. And I was introduced somehow through a group of friends, started their podcast, completely different area. And I started looking into it. I was like, what am I going to talk about? What could I really talk about? And somehow I landed on this super important topic that you and I both share of sobriety and transforming our lives and doing complete 180. And so I say that sincerely, that when I say it's happening so fast, I mean, just a few months ago, like I said, this wasn't really on the radar. And now episode 5 is coming. I'm releasing one a week, and episode 5 is coming out next week. And it's kind of, I sincerely, honest to God, feel like there's a higher power going through here, and there's a bigger purpose, and that's really driving me. And although it seems hectic, and I know you could speak to the hecticness of it, and bookings and people recording shows with you, and the quality is bad, and we have to redo it like I did. Apologies once again. I appreciate your
No worries.
being so but it really is. It's going fast. Things I didn't care about, a month ago, like followers and things. All of a sudden I'm paying
whole
attention
new world,
to. But
right?
it honestly has been a blessing to people. It is. But the people I'm meeting, Nate, is what is really wasn't on the radar either. Like I remember when I was early on in sobriety, and I'd hear people talk about, maybe they were celebrities or people in my mind, for lack of a better word, further along or higher up than I was, talk about living life of sobriety. It helped me. And I've been sober 17 plus years, which is a miracle if you knew me 17 years ago. But when I heard those people telling those stories 17 years ago when I was struggling early on, it really helped. And I hear all these amazing stories, as I'm sure you do too, of just complete life transformations. And I just thought more people can hear these. More people need to hear these stories, not just the people in my room or in my circle, so to speak. So that's where it stemmed from. And now it's going. It's full. Like I said, there's no turning back now. Not
full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead. I'm playing the long game, so I'm enjoying it. I really am.
Good. Well, I want to talk about, because for me, also one of the surprising things was how integral the podcast has become in my own sobriety. And to someone with 17 years, I'm sure your recovery sort of regimen has evolved over the course of nearly 2 decades, but let's go back maybe 17 years and start with a bit more of your story, and then kind of maybe evolve to today. And we'll talk a bit more about the podcast, but what was it like 17 years ago?
So I was alcoholic from the get-go, and this is stuff I didn't realize until I was in recovery. I developed a chip on my shoulder early on. I saw things a young kid's not supposed to see, 8, 9, 10 years old. I had a dad that was active. I love my dad. We have a great relationship as we can have. It's a little complicated at times, but I from the get go, you hear it a lot. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, and I started drinking alcohol, and it made me feel comfortable, and I was able to do things like speak to girls, or I have a little more courage. I kind of hated that kind of line for so long, but it does resonate with me.
Yeah.
No, but I got in trouble early too, Nate. 16 years old, night before Thanksgiving. It's a big night in my town. I snuck into the bar. I was with some older cousins all during the day. I snuck into the bar that night. Fight breaks out. I wake up Thanksgiving morning with a first-degree assault of a police officer.
Oh,
The fight broke out. I allegedly broke a cop's nose right in the middle of the street. And I was the smallest guy in the bar. I was the youngest guy in the bar by miles, and yet I'm the one waking up Thanksgiving morning. And I mentioned that because that changed the trajectory of my life at that age. I was captain of my baseball team, and next thing I know, I'm missing games because I'm in the court system. But people in my town, they looked at me differently. I come from a very interesting town. My part of the town is a very kind of blue collar, a little rougher around the edges area. And if you go down the street a little bit and hop over a couple of fences, you're in like one of the wealthiest areas in the country. And so we all went to school together. And I mentioned that too. It seems to be coming up. I think I felt uncomfortable. I was always suffered. And even to this day, of not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm low self-esteem. But these are words that I didn't realize when I was out there. I learned these words in recovery. And as far as you hear the saying a lot, I didn't get in trouble every time I was drunk, but every time I got in trouble, I was drunk. And alcohol was my first crutch, my first thing. I definitely was an alcoholic from the get-go. Like I said, I found some other substances a little later, 18, 19 years old. And it's funny, I saw these things, like I mentioned my dad, I saw these things, what he was doing with his friends when I was a young kid, and I hated it. I hated the cocaine. I hated the stuff. I'd see cut straws in I grab a spoon from my cereal box, and there'd be cut straws from the night before, just stuff all over the place you're not supposed to see. And so I hated it. And lo and behold, 18, 19, 20 years old, I get introduced to it, but it lets me drink more. And so I very quickly latched on to that. And I was funny in the sense that, like, I wouldn't have guys' numbers. I wouldn't be like the guy calling to get all the stuff because I was against that. I was just a drinker. But as soon as I had a couple of drinks in me, I was like, call them and get it now.
Get
and
it.
let's go. Yeah.
I so relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. And my friends and my buddies, even some of them that were into that a little more responsibly than I was, they had to like keep it from me because I was the type of person that whatever was in front of me was like, do it all and do it all right now. And then once that's done, like, get them back. Let's go. And it was, it's ugly. It's really, really ugly. I say that kind of almost tongue in cheek, but it's a real dark and ugly place. And that's where I was 16. Fast forward a few years ago, I got a real job, my first real job. I never graduated college. I enrolled a few times in college, and I have no college degree. And I find myself in a real job on a real Wall Street firm, one of the bulge brackets. And I'm surrounded by a bunch of Ivy Leaguers. And I say this a lot, that chip on my shoulder I mentioned, I think it served me well at certain times too, that competitive kind of, screw you. I know you're from Harvard, but this guy from nowhere, Long Island, is going to outwork you. And I did that. And I'm still in that industry today in a much more relaxed kind of capacity. Yeah. But yeah, so I was at this job, my first real job, like I said, and in typical Gary fashion, I go out on a Thursday night. I go out all night. I don't show up Friday. I go on a bender on the weekend. I don't show up Monday. I don't show up Tuesday. There's a letter FedEx to my house and hand delivered to me. And I open it and it says, Gary, if you are alive, you need to contact us. Otherwise, your position is terminated. So I called them. I thought very quickly on my feet. I called them and I said, I am alive, but I have a problem with drinking. I have a problem with alcohol and I need to go away. And I went upstate to a place called St. Christopher's. They call it the Miracle on the Mountain. It's in upstate New York. And that was in 2002. So I started, let me just back up really quick. I started at this firm. It was downtown Manhattan. I started of February 01. I'm about less than half a mile, 6 blocks north of the World Trade Center. What happened there in September? The following April, I go AWOL and upstate to a rehab. and I'm in and out. I'm in and out for 4 years. My sobriety date is May 13th, 2006, and I went up to rehab April of 2002. So I've heard this in the rooms actually for those 4 years. I've heard this term, and it was my sponsor who said it, and he didn't even, just kind of said it off the cuff. And he said we were engaged in a battle every single day, and we didn't even know it. And that was me. More than 4 straight years, but just that window from the rehab to my sobriety date, it was just a battle. And I can go on and on, but
you hear a lot in the rooms too, like once you get a taste of the recovery and these things, and it's kind of like sloshing around in your head, but you go back out, it kind of, well, it eliminates any fun of the drinking. But I think when we're that deep, the fun had gone long ago. But when you have that taste of recovery, and it kind of just kills the soul a little bit more, right? Because it attaches this shame to the drinking even more.
I love what you just said, because that's exactly what it's doing. Slowly, or maybe not slowly, sometimes it is attacking your soul a little bit every single day. And that's what I was doing. I was killing my soul. The morals, right? We hear it a lot. My morals just kept getting lower and lower and lower. And I had zero integrity. I had zero responsibility. I was speeding. I had this job, but I was speeding to nowhere. I had absolutely nothing in front of me. I had no goals, nothing in front of me. But I love what you just said. I'm gonna have to use that one too, because it does. It really, it's killing your soul slowly. I'm drawing a blank too. You just mentioned something else that I picked up on. Keep going. Sorry.
No, you're fine. What did I say? It was good. Oh, so the back and forth, the in and out. Well, I did want to ask you, were you working in Manhattan on September 11th?
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry if that come across. I was about 6 blocks north. I think if you Google map it, it was like a half a mile north. And I was outside blowing a butt when I just missed. I was outside smoking a butt. I walked upstairs, and when I went upstairs is when the first plane hit. And I'm sitting at my desk, and guy came storming. And this is a big trading floor. There's hundreds of people on this trading floor, and some guy, I can remember him, that was named Tom C, great guy, just came screaming and said, "That was no accident. That was no accident." And we're like, what is he talking about? And then we go back downstairs, and we're looking up, and you just see this awful blaze. And they're like, holy cow, we're like, what's going on? You still don't know what's happening. And then again, I just missed the second one. I go back up to my desk when the second one hits. And then it went over the loudspeaker, the whole firm. We had a big high rise downtown Manhattan. And they said we're being evacuated because we're basically under attack. And so we went downstairs again. And that's when the chaos really kind of ensued. It's when people are jumping out, and we're seeing that stuff. And I just like, get out, start walking north. And I was with a group of guys that I worked with, and I wasn't really tight with anyone at this job just because I was just so different from everyone. And so I started walking with them, but lo and behold, I bump into a good friend from home, and he was in the World Trade Center. And so I just stayed with him. And so he lived like downtown Manhattan, north of the World Trade Center, but he lived not far. And so we started walking. I mean, the whole city's walking in the streets, and this behind your shoulder is the two Twin Towers. And I remember I locked onto a guy in a van, and we locked eye contact, and he was trying to say something, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. He was foreign, and he was saying something to me, and I walked to his van. I was like, what is it? What are you saying? And he was pointing at the radio in his van, and he was saying the Pentagon just got hit. The Pentagon just got hit. And we're like, wow, okay, so what's next? Anyway, so we start walking, towers fall right before my eyes, and whatever. That's a whole nother topic for all of us.
All of us, right?
I was close, but we were all in that together for sure.
Want to start a podcast? Spotify has a platform that allows you to create one so easily you won't believe it. And the best part, it's totally free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters allows you to record, edit, and distribute your episodes right from your phone or computer. You can also add songs from Spotify's library, edit with cool transitions, and then hear your show on all the big networks, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. You can also earn money through ads and subscriptions. And once again, for those in the back, it's completely free with no catch. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started today. You did say something in there that I related to in my addiction related to my career or work. And you said you weren't really close to anyone. And I remember purposely keeping myself at a distance from any of my coworkers because I didn't want to let them in too close in fear of they would recognize my addiction, or I wasn't fully focused during the day, or any of my actions at work that would perhaps point toward that. Was there any of that factored into perhaps you keeping a distance from your coworkers?
No, it was just, I was so different. And it was really, I really did have this chip on my shoulder. Like I said, I was surrounded by these kind of, in my mind, this is all my head, a bunch of entitled people that are having these things handed to them. And they have all their accolades and they have their college degrees. Like I said, they're all Ivy Leaguers. And honestly, I didn't even know how to answer an email. I remember early on getting an email at this job, and I was responding in caps lock. Like, that's how lost I was. But I had this chip on my shoulder, like I said, like, I'm going to do it. And in a way, I did. I did outlast a lot of those people, but it doesn't matter. So, and to the flip side of your point, though, and this is disease for me, I thought that this is where I'd shine. Like, yeah, I don't know how to answer an email, and I'm learning what a stock is and how to trade this stuff, whatever. But 4:30, I can go out better than all of you. Let's go. Who wants to really get going? That's how it was for a little bit, but very quickly, then after a while, I'd pull the Irish exit. So when we did go out, I'd be like, yeah, this is fun. And then I'd bolt because I can't hang out with these guys. I need to go find someone that, or be by myself. I was a huge isolator. I loved to be by myself. Abnormally. Yeah. And so I would go and I'd go find a dark bar and I'd sit by myself and I'd sit to myself all night, and I would go out all night all by myself. I loved it. Just loved it. Even right now, I can feel it. When, like I said, I've been sober a long time, but that's a sick person talking to you even right now. And I was a young man at the time.
Wow. So after those 4 years, then what was the catalyst, or when did it stop or finally click after that 4-year period?
You hear things like this a lot where you can't really put an actual finger on it. But I was sitting at my apartment. I had a great apartment on West 12th Street in West Village, New York City. And I'm sitting in my apartment all by myself again. And I feel like it's a Tuesday. I think if I look back, I have to check, but I say Tuesday because it was such an ordinary, nothing like big night. It wasn't Saturday night, or it was just a Tuesday. And I was drunk as a skunk in my apartment, drinking beers, booze, vodka, Jack, all of it, smoking weed, or whatever else I had. And my mom's one of 10, and I am the first grandchild of my mom's side of the family. And I have like 21 younger cousins. And they kind of looked up to me. Well, not kind of, they did look up to me. And I just remember thinking about them for some reason and just thinking, like, is this what you want them to see? Is this like the role model that you want to be for these guys? And honest to God, I just said, I don't want to do it anymore. And I said, God, I don't want to do this anymore. And in those 4 years, I went to the rehab. I went to AA, and I always said it'd probably be a time when I really have to stop drinking one day. But I was like, I'm definitely not going back to AA. Like, I'll do it on my own. And lo and behold, this May 13th, which is my sobriety date, which was the next day, I am calling intergroup at AA in New York City. And I went to a meeting that day. And for the first time, for those 4 years now, also I was in and out. I'd come in, I'd go on just fantastic benders, try to stop drinking. I'd go back to AA, and I never put 90 days together, ever. Not even the rehab, never put 90 days together because I was going to do everything myself. I guess I wasn't given that gift of surrender that I was given that night. And so I went back to AA, but this time, like, I just started doing what I was told and listening to the suggestions that were given me. And before, if some, guy came up to me and said, "Hey, here's my phone number, call me tomorrow," every instinct in my body is to turn away. I'm like, I'm not going to call some strange guy. What is this guy? Who does he think he's talking to? And this time I was like, fine, I'm just going to do it. And then I would. I'm like, hey, you told me to call you, so I'm calling you. How you doing? I'm good. Did you drink today? No. All right. When I started this practice too, it was given to me as a suggestion, like start your day on your knees and ask God, ask whoever your higher power is to give you the gift of sobriety today. And I remember I did that. And at the end of the day, I couldn't believe I didn't drink. And went, wow, that worked. And at the end of the day, I thanked him for giving me the gift of sobriety for just today. And that's a practice I started early on from day one. And I still do that today. And it's still part of my prayers, my morning prayers. And again, morning prayers were not in my rotation 17 plus years ago, but now they are. Start my day every single day on my knees in prayer and in gratitude, just thanking my higher power, who I call God, for this day, for giving me the gift of sobriety, for my family, for our health, and just I ask him to please let me help someone today, one person today. And that's the mantra of the podcast too. Let me just help one person today.
Wow. Yeah. The gratitude. I think for me at least, my recovery practices and meetings or conversations may evolve and my practices may change. But I think for me, at least, the gratitude has to stay there. The gratitude has to be part of the recovery focus, or that complacency starts to settle in. And that's a scary place, I think, if we're complacent in our sobriety.
Oh yeah, that is a complacency leads to I'm okay, leads to I got this, leads to I don't need this meeting, this higher power, this anything. And gratitude, when I'm really kind of on the beam, no matter what's going on in my life, when I'm living in gratitude, like I'm okay. I love the saying too, and I say it a lot, like you can't live in fear and faith at the same time. So I can be overcome with fears. I could put fear on anything. I could put my finger on fear, anything pretty much in my life. Like I could say, I'm fearful of what I'm going to say today. I'm fearful of what Nate's going to think of me. I hope his audience I can go on and on and on. And then I could have even deeper fears. I hope my family's okay today, on and on and on. But when I remember that message, which is completely a fact, when you can't live in faith and fear at the same time, when I go live in faith and know that I'm right where I'm supposed to be, that I have a higher power that is with me and within me. And it starts with gratitude and it keeps me grounded. And I'll say this too. And again, this is all, I haven't made any of this stuff up, stuff that I just learned along the way, is property of sobriety, or for me, property of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where I got sober, was AA. I could put that sticker on anything that I have, or anything that I own, anything material, but anything not material. Things like integrity. I didn't have integrity. Maybe I did earlier, younger, but for the dark ages of my life, I didn't have integrity. I didn't have responsibility. And this may sound funny too, and I say this a lot actually, like every single time the phone rings, Nate, I have an instant, honestly, and I feel it, an instant sense of gratitude that I can answer this phone no matter what right away, because for so long, I was unable to answer the phone. And even
it
in
gives
sobriety,
you that pit in your stomach when it rings. Like,
yeah,
oh God,
yeah.
who's it?
Who's after me? What did I do
Who's
last
after
night?
me?
Yeah, like what did I do? Who do I owe? Who is it? And even in sobriety, even when I know I didn't do anything like the night before, I couldn't answer the phone for so long. It was like my muscle memory was it was attached to the anxiety of it. And today, when the phone rings, honestly, like I have this instant sense of gratitude that I can answer the phone right away. And it's one of the little things. And I think life is really a big giant barrel of little things. And I think gratitude helps me get there, if that makes sense.
Sure does. Yeah. Well, Gary, you mentioned the podcast, the Begin Again podcast. Tell us sort of what we can expect from your episodes. You mentioned kind of the mantra and the theme of it, but what are some of your goals with the podcast and what you'll share with the audience?
My goals And again, this happened really quickly, but my goals are to grow it, and the grow it is really, really big. And I say that because the more people that are listening to it, A, is telling me that maybe it's going okay and that they like it, but really what it's there for is to help someone. And yes, I say help one person today, and that is the mantra, but I say that with the obvious. If there's a bigger audience, that you can help more than one person today. In fact, my prayers in the morning are starting to shift to, let me help multiple people today. Let me help as many people as I possibly can today. So that's where, and I mentioned before, just it's the message. I think that when I came in 17 plus years ago into an AA room for me, or it could be into a rehab for someone, or maybe they just stop drinking, however they get here. Like, I don't care how you get here. Like, because I'm not, AA is what worked for me, but I'm not saying that's the only way. But there's no big sign when you walk into a room that says, come on in, you can completely change your life. And that's exactly what happened to me. And that's exactly what happened to countless of other people. And so my goal is to share those stories of, if you can turn your life around, you can find sobriety, you not only can stop drinking and stop living that way, and you're not alone, but you can completely make a beautiful life for yourself, bigger and better than anything you can possibly imagine. And I mean that sincerely. That is not hyperbole. That is the truth. Now, my goals have changed a lot. When you hear beyond my wildest dreams, like, I was never like a Lamborghini guy, but that's not what the goals are. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
the goals have changed. The goals of, I want to help someone today. I want to be able, maybe I leave a legacy. Maybe I do. I have big dreams of where I want to take the podcast, and there's big ideas from the podcast, but it's all built around helping people. And I had this kind of I guess you can call it epiphany, kind of recently, that all the things that I had done to myself, or all the things that had happened to me, I want to turn it on its head, and I want to turn it into a positive. Like, getting in trouble early. Like, I was so ashamed of that story for so long. Like, couldn't see friends, and people were disappointed in me, family. But now there's a little bit of power in that story that maybe can help grow the show, right? Yeah. I had a widowmaker heart attack 4 years ago, totally off topic, I guess, but I was walking to the train, felt a pain in my chest, and I had a widowmaker heart attack. I made it home. My wife rushed me to the hospital. It's a long story, but my point is, if I grow an audience, I can have something with a heart health avenue to it, where I can help people there. I found out I had a brother. I'm 49. I found out I had a brother when I was 44 years old. I want to help people, abandoned children. I want to help them as well. Like, there's just so much stuff, that everything that I had in my mind that is so negative or a difficult situation turned into a positive. So I don't know. There's, like I said, this is happening all so fast, but in a good way. And it's all coming from a good place of service. And that's again, a word that was not on my radar 17 plus years ago. And that's what I want to do. I want to help people today.
That's amazing. Well, great segue. What if our listeners are struggling? What are some action items that you can offer them today as something to kickstart their recovery, or to put one foot in front of the other? Other than listening to the podcast.
Yeah, no. I think if there's something that I hear the most of, Nate, it's this fear of what people are going to think of them. They're going to lose something. They're going to lose their buddies. They're going to lose their friendship. They're going to lose their identity. And the truth is, nobody cares. And if someone like kind of like gives you a hard time about it, they're definitely, or most likely, not someone that should be important in your life. So, I mean, that happened. That was me early on too. I couldn't go to a party. I thought my entire identity was like partying, and I thought I was going to lose everyone. But that's totally not the case. And so the people that are close to you, they're going to support you. And then as far as, like, I'm a big KISS guy, keep it simple, stupid. It just works for me. And again, for me, it was AA. At the beginning, all I did was not drink and go to meetings. And that's all I did. Like that was my mantra early on. Don't drink and go to meetings. Some people say, well, there's a lot more to it. And there is a lot more to it. But at the beginning, early on, if you don't drink and go to meetings, maybe if you hear someone in a meeting that you like what they're saying, that you can relate to them, that you feel comfortable with, reach out to them, try to befriend them. Meeting makers make it, they say. And this is not an AA show, I know, and my show is not an AA show either. But like I said before, you can totally change your life. And to answer your question again, is just go easy on yourself. I think we're a community that really beats ourselves up really, really easily for some reason. It's like a common denominator. Even when we're doing well, we find stuff that we beat ourselves up for. So just go easy, man. And go easy on yourselves. Easy does it. It is one day at a time. Don't project. And I'll say one last thing as far as projection, because it's a big part of my recovery, is when I get in those fear-based modes, it's all projections. It's all projections that I'm fear-based projections. This isn't going to happen, or I'm not going to do that in the future, or this is going to happen in the future. And it's hard as it is, just if you just stay in the day and you stay in the moment and live in the now, as they say, it's a much easier place. Go easy on yourself.
It kind of goes along with the manifestation and what you're speaking into the world. And if you're beating yourself up and thinking or talking negatively, it just creates this negative environment for more negativity to kind of fester. So even if you aren't in the best place right now, go easy on yourself. I agree with that so much.
Yeah, and if you're really struggling, reach out. There's so many resources, whether it's a podcast, whether it's your podcast, whether it's Intergroup, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous. There's so many resources online that is not AA. And again, if someone asks me, I'm going to bring them to an AA meeting. That's where I'm going to send them. But there's other places. I have friends that run rehabs that are not necessarily AA based, and there's other ways to do it. Again, and I'm going to keep pounding this. For me, it's AA, and if anyone asks me, I'm going to send them to Alcoholics Anonymous for sure. But my point is that there's just a ton of resources. I'm sure there's some on your website. There's some on my website. There's just Google it. Just seek help, man. Like, seeking help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of courage. And I think that is something that early on we don't realize and we don't know. And I've been given the gift of, I thought I knew everything and I know nothing. And I kind of lead that way because it allows me to learn. And I'm a place now that I keep an open mind in all of it, but it starts with me getting sober.
Gary, where can people find you online or find more about the podcast? Here's your pitch moment.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So the Begin Again podcast, you can find me on any podcast platform that you listen to, wherever you hear your podcasts. We drop an episode once a week right now. I want to get it up to 2, but right now we're going to stay at 1. Everything seems to be going well. And I'm building out my social media platform. Instagram is where I'm at the most, where I interact the most. It's at the Begin Again podcast on Instagram, and that seems to be going really well. And on my website is thebeginagainpodcast.com. So any of those places, DM me, or I'm very available, and especially on this topic. I'm just trying to pay it forward. So many people helped me, and I always had a thing, even in my sobriety, even to this day, like, I wish I could do more. I wish I could help more people. And this maybe it was my higher power listening to some of my prayers in there and putting this podcast. So maybe we can help more. Together we can help more people one day at a time. So yeah, that you can find me, please. Again, Instagram, I guess, is my main spot right now.
He's quick to reply on Instagram. I can say that. And I'll link all of that in today's show notes. Gary Mankies, thank you so much for your time today, friend. I'll see you again on Monday, I guess.
Yeah, Monday. I'm looking forward to hearing your story again.
Maybe we can kind of link the release of the shows, do kind of like a crossover episode, if you will.
Sure. I think that's a great idea.
Might be fun,
that's
right?
The stuff that I'm learning, the collaboration part of things. You're way ahead of me on that. And I'll just say really again quickly, it's the people, honestly, that I am meeting that was not part of the mission statement, the plan, when I wrote down all the ideas of this podcast. Yeah, but it's an amazing perk. And I have met so many people amazing people and amazing communities like yourself, Nate, in such a short period of time. I'm lucky I have a Rolodex of people that I can bring on, but I started the podcast completely cold, and everyone that I have had on are brand new relationships. And I think we mentioned last time we spoke, but I'm big on relationships and keeping the relationship, and just to be able to email or text guys and girls that we've met in the past couple of months it's really a beautiful thing.
I agree. One of the unexpected, but it's up there, top of the list with the relationships that we can build and utilize partnerships in the future. And whether it's a podcast or a influencer or someone that has a little bit of power or influence on other people to help convey our message or to help other people. So I agree. One of the best perks.
Yeah, totally. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on. I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. I know you're wearing a lot of hats in a lot of different areas right now, but it's impressive to watch. So it's an honor to be on with you today. Thanks so much, Nate.
Thanks, Gary. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much for listening today, friend. Hopefully you heard something that resonates with you. And if we help just one person, our job is done. Make sure you check today's show notes for all the information discussed in today's episode and how to connect with our guests. Until next Wednesday, try your best not to drink and be good to yourself. Bye, everyone.